We know that over the last 30 to 50 years, the climate has changed. In fact, we are at the 95th to 100th percentile of the warmest temperatures we have ever seen in Big Bend National Park. And every indication from the scientists is that's going to continue and that's going to accelerate, even under the most conservative scenario.
As we move forward, it's just very important that we take a real careful look and we're observant of what the science is telling us about the climate and the changes in the future.
The future will not look like the past. In many areas, including the Chisos Basin within Big Bend National Park, the climate is changing rapidly.
So we need to understand not what the future will look like, because nobody can predict that, but we do need to understand what are the range of possible futures.
More and more people are coming, and more people want to spend time surrounded by this beautiful landscape. Big Bend's often referred to as 3 parks in 1, and right now we're in the middle of one of the most spectacular parts of the park, where it's the heart of the Chisos Mountains. It's a 50-million-year-old pile of volcanic rock that now stands high above the lowlands of the desert and the river.
Because there is this high mountain range in the middle of Big Bend National Park, it receives a lot more precipitation than other areas in the park. And so as the mountains get precipitation, it funnels down into the spring.
So Oak Spring itself within the park is a really critical water supply for Big Bend. It's the sole source of water to really one of the busiest areas within the park itself.
When they hike the Window Trail, I think few people realize that that's where their water's coming from. They may kick the little pipe here and there where it's exposed, but many people never really make that connection of where their water is coming from. All the water in their hotel room, the water in the faucets in the campground, the ice in their drink is all coming from a tiny spring miles away down on the desert floor.
In the 1950s, when they built the pipeline here, I'm sure that they evaluated what was the best and most cost-effective way of bringing water here, but nonetheless, we probably would never build a pipeline like that today. The impact would just be too great, particularly in an area that has since been recommended for wilderness designation. But nonetheless, it's here. The impact is real. The development behind me is also real, and we're not going to take that out. We have to provide water, but we have to do it in the most environmentally sensitive ways.
Here in Big Bend, we have a limiting factor, and that limiting factor is water. Even Oak Spring itself is not really fed from deep underground. It's not tapping some sort of massive aquifer. It in itself is just being fed from rain. And as rain conditions change and rainfall amounts fluctuate throughout the months and years, we see that manifested in the actual flow of that spring.
We asked the scientists at the Climate Change Response Program of the Park Service to come in and evaluate what was known about Oak Spring hydrologically, what was known about climate models.
Well, the way we help parks manage for climate change is by looking at different future scenarios of climate and different projections of what climate may look like, so that they can understand the range of what they might expect and plan within that range intentionally.
Particularly when we talk about big investments within the Park Service, things like water supplies, where the expectation is that this thing's going to last 50 to 70 years. We really want to think about what is the climate in the future going to look like, not just what the climate in the past looked like.
It was really important for me as a relatively new superintendent being asked to commit $10 or $20 million to make sure that I had the best available science, and we were looking at the best modeling that we could so that we'd make the most intelligent decision that we could with the information that was available.
So we took projections of future climate, and all future projections show that it will get warmer, just depending on how much.
So we looked across multiple scenarios, but in a worst case scenario, the park can expect to experience potentially twice as many conditions in which they're really water limited compared to what it is currently.
So the question would be, can we manage for those long periods of drought and then store enough water so that we could survive those periods? very intentionally, we committed to two things. One is we will redevelop the pipeline here at Oak Spring. And two is we will put in another 500,000 gallon tank so that we can store a lot more. And at the same time, we will replace over time all the distribution pipes and all the faucets and dishwashers and other things that use water here so that we actually lower the amount of use even if the visitation goes up.
And so taking this approach allows the park to act intentionally as they make their management decisions and be able to realistically look at the range of what they might expect and make plans not based on what the history of the spring looked like, but what on the future might look like.
I hope that 20 or 30 or 50 years from now, my successor looks and says, well, they didn't know everything, but they made an intelligent decision. That would be our goal.